Hello, and a very warm welcome to this Nordregio webinar on higher education in remote and rural areas. We are going to look at the success factor and effective approaches of what makes higher education in rural areas and small towns work. What are the success factors? What approaches work? What kind of lessons can we share across the Nordics and maybe even beyond? My name is Mia Itanen. I am a senior communications officer here at Nordregio, and I will be your host and guide you through today's session. But I am by no means alone today. We have a panel and a beautiful lineup of speakers, and we will be looking at different aspects of higher education in rural regions, the contribution of higher education into rural development and regional development, as well as some key lessons for business and university collaboration. So different types of perspectives, different types of aspects and issues. Let's have a closer look at the agenda and see what we've got in store for you today. The webinar will be in more or less two parts. Today's webinar in total will be an hour and a half, about 90 minutes. And for the first 45 minutes, we are going to take you through a series of presentations. We will first look at the Edinora project and some findings from the project. We will do that with Eva Marsk from Nordregio, one of our researchers. We will then have something brand new that we are launching and sharing with you today. We will look at a mapping tool for mapping higher education institutions across the Nordics. And Anna Vasilevskaya from our GIS team, our GIS analyst from Nordregio, will give you a live demo of this brand new tool and will also give you access to it so that you can give it a try later on. Then we will look at two different case studies and regions. We will go on a little Nordic tour, starting from Iceland, and we will meet Peter Weiss and go to the Westfjords and see how higher education is working over there. From there, we will continue to Finland, to Jakobstad, and meet Fredrik Sandelin and talk about how to align skills and education and interests, both locally and maybe even in a broader perspective. After we've covered these basics, for the second half of this webinar, we are going to open up the floor for comments and discussion. We will invite panelists to join the floor, and we will look at what success actually looks like for peripheral education in the Nordics. We will do that together with Dr. Han Wang, who is an assistant professor in economic geography from the University of Southampton and a visiting fellow from London School of Economics. We will have Elina Kilpi-Jakonen, who is a professor of sociology working on Invest flagship and University of Turku, bringing a different type of perspective into the discussion. And we will also meet Jens Lerager from Holbach Business Forum. He's the director of the Business Forum, and we'll talk about this type of collaboration between different types of institutions. But in addition to all of these people, I also want to hear from you. You have the chance to be an active contributor and a participant throughout this webinar. We have some polls for you. The first one is on your screen right now. I would like to know a little bit about your profile. I would like to know where you come from, what type of institution you represent, what type of background do you have? Do you come from higher education? Are you from the policy world, maybe from a national government, regional administration, or a municipal level? Do you work in academia or research? Or maybe you represent the private sector or the civil society or NGOs, or maybe something completely different, who knows? And also, I would like to know where you are based. We are looking at small towns, rural areas, and peripheral education in particular, but just to get a sense of whether you come from this type of area yourself, or maybe if you come from a bigger city, that would also be interesting to know. So give some input in the poll. In addition to the poll, I've already seen some comments in the chat, and that is a very good sign for an active discussion throughout the session. The chat will be there for you throughout this webinar. You can use it to ask questions, maybe to share links to additional information if you have some experience from your side, anything interesting to share. So please feel free to make good use of the chat throughout the session. And I see a very nice coverage of countries. We've got the Baltics, we've got different Nordic countries, we've even got representatives and participants from beyond. I've seen France, I see Denmark, I see Poland. So a very, very nice coverage of participants. If you haven't responded to the poll yet, this is your very last chance because I will close it and give you a quick overview of who the other participants are, and then we will dive into the agenda of the day. All right, let's have a quick look. You should see it on your screen now. So as expected, we do have quite a few participants, 29% from higher education providers, universities or vocational education, 42%. The majority of today's participants come from policy, administration, or government, which is very interesting mix because we're going to look at higher education and its contribution to regional development. So please do share your comments as we get through the program. I hope to hear from you as well, in addition to our speakers. And then we've got academics and researchers, 17%, and some civil society and private sector representatives and a few others. And many of you, the vast majority, 43% are from rural or remote area and 27% from medium-sized town. And then we've also got 29% representing the major or urban centers or capitals. So nice mix there as well. If you see some contrasting experiences or findings, please do comment on those. Thank you for these inputs. Please stay this active throughout this session because now it is time to dive into our agenda. And to do so, I would like to invite Eva Marsk, who's from Nordregio, a researcher, a consultant who's been working on the Edinora project, and she will talk about some of the key findings, give us some food for thought as we get into the discussion. She will outline how higher education in rural and small town areas can serve a regional attractiveness, equity, and resilience. So Eva, I will leave the floor to you, but please, if you have any questions, do pop those in the chat because I'm going to come back after this presentation and we can discuss those more with Eva. So now, Eva, over to you.
Thank you, Mia, and thank you all of you for joining today. As Mia mentioned, my name is Eva Mask. I'm a PhD in sociology and I'm a research consultant at Norregio. I will give you a little bit of highlights from our project to hopefully set the scene for today's for the other speakers and for the panelists. As you might imagine, 8 minutes for higher education beyond the major urban areas in the Nordics. That is not a lot, but I hope that I can give you some interesting perspectives. First of all, our case studies. I would very much like to thank all of you because doing this research that we do in Edinora, that wouldn't be a possibility if you wouldn't have worked with us. So the findings that you will see today are highlights from Campus Sundsvall, Campus Nesna, University of Akureyri, Campus Jakobstad, Högskolan på Åland, and Holbæk Uddannelses and Study Center in Denmark. Thank you all very much. And again, as also Mia mentioned, if you have any questions for me, please put them in the chat. We wanted to start the Edinora project because, as I guess most of you who are joining today, you know about the difficulties when we want to provide education outside urban areas. It's a topic which have increased in policy attentiveness across especially the last 20 years. We have seen a lot of reforms in across the Nordics. This is a topic which both touch upon how to solve this problem of maintaining and attracting a skilled workforce, how to increase regional growth, and of course also addressing what do we do with this outmigration of young adults from rural to urban areas. And we can see that these different problems are fostering new types of higher education and some very innovative ways of providing education. And that is what we have dived into in the Edinora project. Overall, we see that when we want to provide education outside of the urban areas, we see three main types of organizational formats. We have these multi-institution campuses, which are different institutions merging together and creating a campus in, for instance, a smaller town. We see campus branches, or what other people call satellite campuses, which are smaller campuses from larger higher education institutions. And then we have these more standalone regional institutions, which are still located outside the major urban areas, but have their own identity. When we see the overarching themes across the different case studies, we see that a lot of you are experimenting with hybrid or online or flexible models of educational delivery. Usually, higher education institutions located outside urban areas see themselves as very important actors, engines for regional development. We see a high motivation for this, for trying to solve this, or trying to build a skilled workforce with and for the local labor market. And there are usually strong ties to the local community. But this also means that we can see that the campuses and institutions are highly dependent on strong collaboration across sectors and across different actors. When we interview and analyze these educational institutions outside urban areas, we can see a lot of similar challenges. There's a limited local flexibility that is one of the things that are being reported the most, that how can we provide education bound by the same rules as major urban areas. This is tied to that usually in the Nordics, the national funding models are not adapted to the smaller institutions. We can also see that these frequently shifting political priorities, for instance, in how economy is provided, is shifting rapidly, and it makes it difficult to plan for. And while usually we want to provide and work together with the local labor market needs, they are rapidly shifting, and that makes it very difficult for the educational institutions to plan for. And this is, of course, also tied to that most of these higher education institutions experience very difficult student numbers across the years. This was described as the ketchup effect, that if you open a nursing program, for instance, then one year you have 50 applicants, but that does not mean that you have 50 applicants. The year after, you can have 4. That, of course, does not mean that you are not in a need of nurses. It just means that your student pool is very difficult to adjust for. So if we sum up what we have found for now, and to paint the picture of how to plan for higher education beyond urban areas, we can see from the Genora project that this seems to require putting together quite a large and complex puzzle. It requires a lot of collaboration between different actors on multiple levels. We can also see that it requires stable funding and a lot of policy support. We can see that the places being successful are leveraging the potentials of these hybrid and flexible models of, for instance, providing higher education online, but without missing the on-location campus identities. We can also see that the ones who are succeeding seem to have a strategy for trial and error. One of the case studies explained it with the phrase that we build the plane as we go. We need to have room for making discoveries and adjusting for potentials and the barriers along the way, because this is a new topic. So how we don't know the solution yet. And it also seems to require a very holistic view on what are the students actually experiencing when they are enrolling in these new or regional educational institutions. How we need to be more aware of who are they and what do they actually need, instead of having only the image of the classic higher education student. We need to know who they are. And we need a very strong and often facilitated collaboration from all actors included. We can see that the ones who are successful in this have various advisory boards to make sure that the different actors are talking to each other. And one of the main findings we can see being expressed from our case studies, but also from beyond them, there's a very high need for clarification of the strategic goals. What do the higher education, what is the definition of success for them? Is it a success to attract a lot of young people if they are not there? Or is it a success to attract enough economy to be able to have a stable organization? How to define their role seems to be a recovering theme, which is tied to very much to the future of how to provide education. Who are we doing it for and how to do it? I think I'll leave it at that and make that the final theme for today. We really hope that you will help us answer these questions. So back to you, Mia. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. I think that's a great start. You mentioned that it is a puzzle with a lot of pieces put together, and I hope that we can maybe look a little bit more into those puzzle pieces and maybe even start matching them together a little bit. So with this framework, let's start adding a little bit more meat to the bones. Thank you, Eva, for this. I have one question that just came through. Do you have maybe an example of these frequently shifting political challenges? What are the things that result in uncertainties for higher education institutions in remote areas?
Yes, I can give a Danish example. We had these different policy reforms means that the educational institutions outside of the large urban areas have a very, I cannot remember the English word for it. They get paid in different amounts of how many students they educate and who they are enrolling and if they graduate. But if these numbers are fluctuating or if they are changing very rapidly, it can be very difficult to adjust for in a very small budget. I hope that gives an example.
Yeah, and I think also something that we will definitely come back to, because talking about what actually counts as success, what are the key criteria or measures that you use, what is funded, what is measured, what is looked at. So probably having those clear targets and something that also works over time and doesn't keep changing too much is probably part of the mix. I will come back to you later on. You will join us for the closing of the panel. But now let's move on. There are some links in the chat that I would encourage you to look at. A lot of the things that Eva mentioned are highlighted, for example, in an earlier policy brief from the Edinora project. A link to that is available in the chat. We have this brand new report being launched today. You will also have a link to that. You will also have access to all of this material that we're sharing today, along with the material shared in the webinar. This is being recorded. You'll have access to all of it afterwards. But as I said, we're launching also something else today that is brand new, a mapping tool that looks at different types of educational institutions, higher educational institutions across the Nordics. We've put them on the map. And I want to show you what it looks like. And to do that, I'm going to invite our colleague, another one of our Nordregio colleagues, Anna Vasilevskaya, who is a cartographer and our GIS analyst, who will tell you more about this tool and take you on a little tour. So Anna, over to you.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me today. So I would like to welcome you to this portal, and the portal also is the product of Edinora project. And what you see here is online map that provides the information about the campuses and educational institutions in the Nordic countries. I would like to put in attention that every pin is provided information on the campus, and the location is not exactly correct. It just locates within the municipal borders. So please don't pay a lot of attention to the geographical location of this place. The portal is intended to be used for educational authorities, policymakers, and the educational providers. It is intended to provide collaboration and cooperation opportunities, at the same to have an insight of the key figures and regional distributions of the educational institutions. So I will walk you through this portal pretty brief. As you can see, we have the main area, the map. It's possible to zoom in and zoom out. For example, let me show a location of Helsinki, and here we see a lot of different educational institutions. For example, we can click on the dot and we see the additional information about the place, such as country, the name, the type, amount of students, year of foundation. We have a link to the website, and we have additional information about the programs that's been taught in this place. On the left panel, you see additional buttons such as report. So clicking on this, you can get directed to the published report. You see the data visualization. So clicking on this, you have a visual statistics about the data collected. You can download the data. Clicking here, you will get the table with all the information collected. You have the instructions, and you have the methodology page. So all of this is for you, for your use in your own rhythm and for your own pace. Later, moving on, there are three layers of which information can be shown on the map. So the first one is the fields of education. That's what you see right now. Clicking on this button with the menu, you will get the legend for this. So all different colors represent different fields of education, such as arts, social science, engineering, technology, and so on. Clicking here on the blue point, you can either show on or show off the layers. So for example, let's go and see the types of institutions, meaning universities, colleges, or vocational education schools. So here you can see different colors represent the different types of the facilities. At the same time, we show the number of students with the size of the circle. The third layer shows the Nordic rural urban typology, which is 7 classes of rural urban types in the Nordic regions. That's you can see which municipalities belong into which category. For example, inner urban area, rural urban area, sparsely populated area. This is if you want to make visualization or analytics about what type of institutions and educations are provided in different types of the rural-urban divide. I would like to show you on the right side, there is another panel which has the filters, as you can see, divided by fields of education and types of institution. So all of this you can mark or unmark, and with this, the connected points will appear. So for example, if you are interested only in the institutions that have information and communication technology, you mark this, and all of them are appearing. You can combine filters. So for example, you would like to see social sciences and information and communication technologies. This button removes all the filters. Additionally to this second, filters show the different types of institutions. So for example, you would like to see only universities. On the top panel, you see the last 2 points. It's a print function and share function if you would like to share on LinkedIn or embed or have a QR code, the same as you can print in the PDF format. So today it's the launching of the tool. Some things still maybe have left unnoticed for our eye. So please, if you have some comments or feedback, you're very welcome to contact. And we try our best to incorporate the comments to the tool. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anna, for giving us a tour of the tool. As said, something very new and something that we've put a lot of work into. So we have collected information about all the different types of educational institutions, mapped it across different types of regional levels. And I would like to again get some of your input on how this could be valuable. We have some ideas on our side, but given that we have such a nice mix of participants, I would really appreciate getting some of your views. So let us know how you could see yourself using this type of mapping tool that covers the all of Nordics and gives you a really kind of drilled in and close-up picture into not just where the educational institutions are located, but also what type of programs they offer. Would it be maybe something that could be helpful to identify gaps in educational provision? Could it be a policy-making tool, something that would help planning and policy development? Or maybe it could be something that can be used for collaboration, identifying opportunities, similar institutions as your own maybe. Or other uses, making use of it for skills, needs, accessibility, general communication, either locally or at the national level, or even at the Nordic level. There are plenty of ways to make use of this tool. So in addition to this quick demo that you've just seen, I would really encourage you to take a look at it yourself, zoom into the regions that interest you the most. The link is available in the chat, and I see that the questions are coming in. I'm going to leave it running, and I'll let you give your input as we continue. So you'll still have a bit more time to respond, but I see that many of you see it as a good tool for identifying collaboration opportunities or to identify gaps in regional education provision. Many other types of uses also get some votes, which we are, of course, very happy to see. Anna, did you have some ideas on how people could or should use it now that it's out?
Oh, for me, it's very interesting from the point of geographical analysis, because combining with all the other layers of information, let's say like social economics or even type of urban rural, you can actually identify the gaps or identify what needs to be provided, and also learn from other municipalities and regions, because I guess there are similar municipalities across the region. So it's also valuable to get to know what maybe have been working better with your neighbors and learn from them, not, you know, redeveloping the wheel from again. So
excellent. So keep using it. And I also see some comments coming through in the chat, seeing people find it interesting, maybe already identifying some gaps. So we will go into those. And it could also be something worth sharing, not just among the Nordics, but even at the European level. I see a comment here from DG Agri. So thank you for those. Comment more in the chat. But as time is running, I do want to continue with the program. So thank you, Anna, so much for sharing these. Have a look at the tool. Let us know what you think about it. And of course, make use of it. Now, let's move on. If you didn't respond to the poll yet, I'm going to leave it running and let you give input. But we are going to go on a Nordic tour, as I promised earlier today. We're going to go through two different practical examples. First of them is going to come from Iceland. I'm going to invite Peter Weiss, who is the director of the University Center of the West Fjords in Iceland, to share some lessons from maybe one of the most remote regions in the Nordics on how higher education institutions reflect and balance between place, people, and programs and such. So, Peter, I leave the floor to you, and we'll come back with some questions afterwards. So post your questions in the chat in the meantime.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for finding us, which is not so difficult with these excellent maps Anna Vasilevskaya showed before. We are on those fingers in the very northwest of Iceland. Excuse this cloudy picture. I hope my presentation will not be as cloudy. We are 300 kilometers from the Greenlandic coast, East Greenlandic coast, and 450 kilometers driving to Reykjavik. And first, I want to give you in the next slide some background information about us. We are called a remote region. We have now 7,500 inhabitants. We have been down to 6,900. The population loss has been 30% in 30 years from the 80s. More importantly, for 1,000 years, the Westfjords had approximately 10% of the population of Iceland. Now it's back to 2% of the population of all the country. It's an aging population today, no longer the reservoir that produces the children that go to Reykjavik afterwards. And there are several other demographic red flags around us. And that's something that is important to understand when we talk about whatever we talk about in the Westfjords, because the Westfjords are widely depopulated. There have been a populated area, they are widely depopulated, and that's what gets people to think of what will be in if this would go on in the same way, losing 30% in 30 years. But during the last years, we saw a consolidation, and we are back to 7,500 inhabitants. Now we go through some slides very quickly, because give you some impression of the Westfjords. The Westfjords are phenomenal, and you will see it on the picture. But just for an additional background, let's say the demand did not come from the students or from work life. Our demand came from the politicians. The regional politicians wanted a university, not the ministry. This is a grassroots institutions. So we had a clear call from the politicians, not for distance learning, but for teaching on site. That's exactly the opposite, or partly the opposite, of what Eva Maersk said before. And when Eva talked about success versus success, what is success? I ask, what is demand? Is the demand necessarily coming from students of work life, or can the demand come from politicians? We are in ourselves a tool for regional development. But that's most likely the reason of our existence, our raison d'être. But now we go to the next slide. The Westfjords are beautiful. The Westfjords are phenomenal. Next slide. Just go quick through. They're great. They are phenomenal, like you see on this picture. And they are vast, but they are also empty. And that's our problem. So when I ask for place, programs, and people, I say, of course, all three of them are important. And I want to go in now in the next steps, first into place, then programs, and then people. Can you found a university on an oil platform? I said sometimes founding a university here, and I was first founding director of the University Center 20 years ago. Can you found a university on an oil platform? This is like an oil platform. There are few people. And then I say, yeah, geography helps, of course. If you can find a place on a map, it's easier to advertise it. If you can find Iceland on a map, and normally you can find Iceland on a map, and normally you can find those fingers in the very northwest, you also find the Westfjords and the University Center. So that helps. Of course, it helps also to have the sea and the mountains and beautiful pictures. Reputation also helps for a place. I mean, if you are in this cute little country of Iceland that flows beneath the radar, everybody thinks it's so pristine and so healthy and so pure, then that of course helps to advertise a place. It must be much more difficult to advertise a place like Russia, for example, today. Places in defense are also easier to advertise. When people read, okay, they lost 30% of the population in 30 years, then there is always a portion of students that think, oh, I need to help them. I need to come to the place. And we experience those students to come to us. And also islands as a whole, and the literature is full of them. Islands are often a place of utopia. And we are not an oil platform, as the next picture will show you. We are an island on an island. This is Ísafjörður, where we are located in the harbor area. We have we are nearly an island, and if you can show a picture like that, it is of course easier to advertise. But not each place is an island. Not each place is easy to find on the globe. Each place needs to find its own target group. There is not one size fits for all. And I have been fighting against this. You need to do like Akureyri. You need to do distance learning. You need to do this. And I said, no, we don't need to, because it does not fit us. And you need to find your own way, I think, especially if you're in a very small place. Each place needs to find its own strengths in terms of place and also in terms of programs. And that's my next item then. So in terms of programs, can you learn anything everywhere, anywhere? Can you learn, what would you learn on an oil platform? Would you want to learn on an oil platform? And what would you do there? Would you learn on oil extraction, or would you learn on ballet, for example? And people do I mean, there's also connection to the place when there is a discrepancy, but it needs to be an attractive program to bring people to the place, and it needs to be, in the long run, attractive. The ballet on the oil platform would not go for many years. It's a one-time thing, and you get a lot of beautiful pictures, and then it's over. It needs to be a convincing choice, also for those who give the money, for the politicians or for anybody else. It needs to be to consider demand versus demand. Where does the demand come from? And then, of course, often it needs to connect to the reality around. So the ballet on the oil platform, I don't think it's a good idea in the long run. So then finding one's niche is the item. And where we found our niche, that's the programs at UW. It's what we decided very soon. Next slide. It's a service for distance learning students, with the best thing to do for the people in place. So we offer them a service, proctoring exams and so on. That's what the ministry wanted us to do, but the local politicians wanted us to do more. And we started with summer courses, field school service, academic environment, service for researchers, everything that is not in competition with the Lifelong Learning Center, and everything which is accredited programs. But then when we put that together, can we go further? Can we offer a whole program? And on the next slide, you see the breaking points. The breaking points on program and people. Indeed, when you compare Akureyri in northern Iceland and Ísafjörður, you have a catchment area in approximately 50 to 150 kilometers driving distance. Akureyri has then some 25,000 people catchment area. We have 5,000 people. 1% annually would want to start the university studies. It's 250 versus 50. 50% are normally interested in the 5 most popular subjects. That's 5 times 25 or 5 times 5. And not everybody wants to study close to home. Let's say 80% would want to study in their hometown. It's 5 to 20 or 5 to 4. So in our case, it's always too few. So what we need to find is a study program, next, that is attractive for students from outside the region. And those programs are normally referring in some or the other way to the regions. They are often specialized, at least in our case. They are, in our case, on a master's level, because there you can be more specialized. And we did not believe that people from Reykjavik would come to the Westfield. So we had advertised from the beginning international programs. And those programs, just a short overview next, they are accredited by University of Akureyri, because I said it was hopeless to get accreditation with one-person staff. That was in the beginning. I was the only person staff. We started with coastal communities and regional development. We thought with this holding 1/3 of the coastline of Iceland, we should know something. At least people think we should know something about coastal communities and regional development and coastal marine management. So we have also plans of establishing a program in aquaculture. which is the growing industry here. And there we would go another avenue. The coastal and marine management and the coastal communities and regional development programs, they attract mostly international students, while agriculture program would attract local students. We have a fourth program that is a master's program in cooperation with the SIT in Vermont, climate change and global sustainability. That's a totally different model. They make the accreditation, and they register the student, and the student pay to SIT, and they then buy the services from us. We have little influence on that program, but that's an interesting model indeed. So for the program organization, in short, 120 ECTS master's programs, international programs taught in English, taught in modules to get well-qualified teachers, 3 terms, trimester system, because we think the students, some of them come for 1 year and they should be through with their courses in 1 year. And there you see, and it's a cross-disciplinary program. And in the next slide, thank you, you see the course schedule, the 3 terms, autumn, spring, and summer, and the 2 programs. And in the spring term, they mingle then and have mixed elective courses. This means we have a huge network. All those teachers come on short-term contracts, and they come from worldwide, 50% from Iceland, 50% from other countries. And where do the students come from? The students come from, next slide, half of them approximately come from North America, the other half, 45% from Europe, 5% from other countries, and 5%, less than 5% indeed, from Iceland. Unfortunately, we think the students get more mature in Iceland. We get adventurous students, we get outdoor students, and we get a lot of helpers. But attractiveness is not, our program is not all. The form of financing, for example, is important. As Eva said before, we are not financed, we are financed as a tool of regional development. So we need to bring the people to the place, while normal university financing is financing the taught ECTS. And then distance learning and getting a lot of distance learning students is interesting. It's not for us. The form of organization is important. We can, for example, teach summer courses, what a state-run university in Iceland has difficulties for. The number of inhabitants is, of course, important. The industries around and whether they are attractive is very important. And the social acceptance is important. And by that, I come to the people. Because if you bring in 80 foreign students to, let's say, Tasila, what is close to us here in Greenland, then that might not be socially accepted. So I ask again, who demands the university? The students in place? Not in our case. The students worldwide? Not in our case. The ministry? Not in our case. It was the locals. It was not even the parents. It were the politicians that were looking for a development tool. And people, they are also pressure groups. They are voters, and that means politics. So when we get into that, then I want to close with 4 questions why people wanted here a university. So in the countryside, naturally, there are less people who have a high school exam. Why did they want a university? So when I started here 20 years ago, they always were stopping the car and asking, when will you start the construction? Because they were construction workers, possibly. They had rooms to rent out. We were counting overnight stays in the beginning. Now we are counting residents. We counted the demand. We counted that for every krona the Icelandic taxpayer puts into the university center, 3 kronas come back to the area, and this comes not with the income of the staff mainly. It comes with the daily spendings of the students. If we have 40 students at any time, if we have 80 students at any time, times 12 months, times study loan, that's the influx, and everybody can calculate that's quite an economic driver. But does the academia want to be an economic driver? We try to find another question, social impact. Why did people want to have a face-to-face study? These are the people who come, the teachers and the students, who come to the church choir and to the Rotary Club and bring their children in the school and so on. 11% of our students stay after their studies in the Westfields. This is in addition to Westfield's workforce and tax base. They have found companies, they marry, they add to diversity, they widen the horizon. But still, does an academia want to be a social welfare office? So next question was, can we have an impact through research? We have produced 284 master's theses. That's quite, I should have put that on first. 30% of theses are on Westfield's topics, possibly 10% or 20% of them are directly usable, but still that's approximately 12,000 working hours per year. So that's quite a lot. And there the region gets new knowledge on a silver platter for free. But it's in English, it's not directly usable necessarily, it's open access, but still, are we there maneuvering between an ivory tower and a service research? And in the end, I ask myself whether the most important in that all might be the impact on the image of the region. And a university in a village of 2,000 inhabitants astonishes people. It is unexpected. They take pictures in front of the door there with a sign. University produces also pride with the inhabitants, like an opera house, like Saunlin or Bayreuth, or which all the world knows. It gives a change of image, for example, by job advertisement. It changes also the image through new stories told. We now see that the stories are not always fisheries and the decline in fisheries and the problems in fisheries, but it's also the new bicycle race. One of our students found it here. Attractive for a broader group of people, and by that it is more diverse, it has more diverse talent, and it produces a more resilient society, hopefully. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and welcome to the University Center of the Westfield's. You find us.
Thank you, Peter. I think that was a very good example, very concrete one with some very distinctive local features, but I think also some of the challenges that are very common also to other regions. We don't have any specific questions for you here at this point, but like Eva, Peter will also join later on in the panel. So we will come back to you later. Do post your questions in the chat if there are any. As said, we still have another local case to look at. And this time we're going to zoom in a little bit on responding to skills, demands, and industry needs, the local needs and all that. Some parallels maybe with the Icelandic case, maybe not. We will see. But I will hand over to Fredrik Sandelin, who is working at the Jakobstad, a regional development company, Concordia. And he's a regional developer and will give you a different perspective. So let's switch away from the higher education institutions to the regional development perspective. And Jakob, I will let you tell us more. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I hope my slides are on the screen right now. Welcome to the Jakobstad region, as we brand us as the best place in the world. And I'm Fredrik Sandelin, working as a regional developer on a municipality-owned development company, Jakobstad Region Development Company Concordia. And before I try to answer the question how the education is responding to evolving skills and demands and industry needs, I will have to take you on a short dive into the circumstances of the Jakobstad region. Here we are, a slightly growing town-based region between the larger cities of Kokkola and Vaasa in Finland. From Vaasa, we have one of the world's most sustainable ferry connection to Sweden and Umeå. And in the Jakobstad region, we have a quite large harbor. We have a small airport struggling with its existence toward national interests. But still, we have a lot of services, goods and products on wheels, ships and air exported to Europe and all over the globe. So we have a 2 billion yearly export value that we have to take into consideration from the private sector when we are looking at education and development. We are also a part of the Quark region, where also on the Swedish side, Umeå, Örnsköldsvik, Skellefteå, Luleå is part of a very interesting green transition area right now, providing a safe, stable potential for also external investments in the future regarding to relatively cheap green energy today. We have also planned windmill park for nuclear sizes in the sea between Finland and Sweden upon already land-based park that are already in place. And we also are part of an increasingly safety and military discussions following to the NATO membership on both sides of the sea right here. We have a lot of brands in the private sector, mostly B2B, that are putting out products and services around the globe. And of course, the education has to meet the needs of these private sector companies in the region. If we look at workplaces, we have slightly over 22,000 workplaces in the region, a relatively big private sector, and as small rural areas, a small public sector. 33% of the workplaces in the manufacturing industry is a large amount compared to most of the regions we have in Finland. So in many ways, the manufacturing export industry talks in this region, which sometimes can be a problem according to small municipalities that are trying politically to get this region to develop. Here you can see the added value from the Jakobstad region, second from the bottom, the purple bar, really high compared to most of the places I have compared with in Finland, in Scandinavia, and also on European level. So, is the education responding to evolving skills and demands of an industry needs? Yes, in many ways. In a flexible way, I think the satellites we have in our region have responded to these development issues that we face. But I think that looking at the educational sector from a private sector perspective is really complex. We have to meet the needs of the companies so that the green fields, the higher education level of students are looking into what the businesses in the region needs. And I feel that the connection between the students and their programs, the R&D and the private sector company has to grow in the future. We have to build a better connection between these three, a new kind of triple helix, where we are also through the students getting the R&D and the research down to often in our case very doing small medium-sized businesses. Another thing that I feel that has changed a lot the last couple of years is when our companies tries to get in touch with the R&D and development and research in robotization, in automation and digitalization. We can't anymore look just on our own region. At the left side, the Scandinavian higher education places, we have students in almost every one of these dots, and also today out in Europe, students that we would like to attract back to support the business life in the region. But we have also to start already in the basic education, in the comprehensive schools, with telling our students about the private sector possibilities for further workplaces when they grow up, to attract them back to support the businesses in the region. And of course, the pupils, the students that are choosing the secondary level, the general upper secondary schools in Finland, which means a lot of them goes further on to universities and universities of applied sciences. We have to work a lot with them as long as we have them in the region to provide this picture of a growing region, a possibility for future workplaces, perhaps a more interesting way of working in the small companies compared to big locomotives that we often have, where you are doing a very narrow way of your studying programs. We can offer a lot of flexible different kinds of workplaces in the companies. So this is the case of the region. I feel that our satellites, Centria and Novia Universities of Applied Sciences, that have been in your research and looking, they are doing a great job, and they are really trying to work the research down to the companies that need it. So in many ways, yes, we are dealing with the issues, but we have also a lot to do in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frederick. So the work definitely continues, but it's nice that you also mentioned that you're building the best place there is and really working on the local strengths. And also, I think an interesting feature is this cross-border collaboration, looking at not just the Finnish context, but also reaching across to the Swedish side and looking at the opportunities there. So very interesting, two contrasting perspectives in that sense. Again, no direct questions here in the chat, so we will come back to you in the panel. Thank you so much, Frederick, for now. And we will also hear a slightly different business perspective in a minute. But before we turn to our panel for some complementary perspectives, we have another poll running, and I would like to hear again from our audience, what do you see as the main challenges for higher education in rural areas, and what the success means? What type of success should we go for? What kind of impact should higher education seek to get to? I'm going to leave that running. We'll come back to the results because these are similar issues that we will be discussing with the panel. So this is a perfect segue for me to introduce our remaining speakers. We are going to expand on these perspectives that we've now covered and look a little bit more into what success actually looks like in the peripheral education in the Nordics. And we are going to do that first with 3 additional speakers, and then, as said, our earlier speakers will join for some final remarks. We have Dr. Han Wang joining from the University of Southampton and the London School of Economics. We have Professor Elina Kilpi-Jakonen from the University of Turku, and we've got Jens Lerger from the Holbæk Business Forum in Denmark. So different perspectives, a little bit of business perspective, as well as some academic and the research perspective, looking into the economic impacts as well as the regional development dimension. So let's dive right into the discussion. We've already heard quite a lot from our speakers up until now. Eva highlighted that it's a complicated puzzle. We've heard different concrete case examples from Peter and Frederick. So Han, I will turn to you first. Based on what we've heard so far, what is on the top of your mind, and how does that reflect with your background on the economic impact of higher education?
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much for the invitation, and also thanks for our presenters for their excellent presentations. So I think all of us agree that the goal of the peripheral higher education is very clear. So it is to provide them access to the education in the rural areas and also the small towns. So this helps local residents gain skills and qualification that ideally aligns with the needs of the local labor market. So one student can find the suitable job locally after the graduation. So this strengthens the regional development, and also it can help reduce the regional inequality. So in this way, peripheral higher education can play a very important role in driving the local growth. So however, as previous speakers such as Peter's talk noted, so the local economic impact of the higher education is not guaranteed. So the success required very thoughtful and place-based strategies. So simply setting up the university or keep one running in the rural area does not automatically guarantee or generate the local benefits. So in fact, a lot of the research evidence shows that the existence of the university is not always enough. So let me just share some findings of our recent study we published in the regional studies. So we analyzed the local economic effect of the Swedish higher education institutions, focusing on the research capacity. And we began with the observation that the Nordic countries invest heavily in university research. So Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Norway all spend more than 0.7% of the GDP on higher education institution R&D, well above the OECD average of the 0.4%. So Sweden, in particular, so it has a long sought to strengthen the research at its universities. However, so our research finding shows that their strategies had very limited local success. So despite the strong national investment, so the higher research capacity has not led to the higher local incomes. So in fact, we found a very negative and insignificant correlation, especially among these newer higher education institutions established in the peripheral areas after the 1977 reform. So rather than reducing the inequality, the higher research output may have widened. So we also explore two different mechanisms or channels through which higher education might affect our local economies. One is human capital, and now one is the innovation. So on human capital, we find a strong focus on the research does not always help attract or even retain talent. Sometimes it even contributes to the brain drain. So it means that the graduates may leave for the better opportunities elsewhere. And a research-heavy strategy may also devote resources from teaching and vocational training, so which always have more locally relevant. So on the innovation, we find that while academic research may be high quality, so it can hardly translate to the local economic value. So the university-industry collaboration remain very weak, with a mismatch between the university research and what local firms really need. So even when research is commercialized, so it seldom benefits the surrounding areas. So our research just suggested that prioritizing research over teaching can ultimately reduce the local impact of the higher education institution. And we also recommend building the stronger and more sustainable partnership between the university and local industry through the early stage of the collaboration incentive, and also other kind of the platform can support the long-term engagement. So this kind of the effort can better align university work with the local economic goals. Yeah. So
Thank you. I think that's very interesting, hearing that the economic impact can actually be quite limited. And actually, well, we've heard about the challenges, a lot of foreign students and local impact might indeed be somewhat limited in certain cases, but I'm curious to see how it looks from the perspective of other countries or from other research. Elina, I think I will turn to you next. You have also looked at education, or how do you see the impact of higher education in terms of local cohesion or local inequalities? Have you also seen similar results, or do we perhaps have some positive news as well?
Thanks a lot, and thanks for inviting me to this really interesting event. So, I mean, we've been doing some research, especially in a project called MAPINEC, on kind of these regional inequalities in education and educational attainment, and colleagues have been doing it more broadly. And kind of the social inequality perspective is the one that I'm kind of tend to take on a range of matters. And I think so from this perspective, these kinds of regional institutions can, I mean, there is a lot of positive impact that they might have. So we know that students from, in particular, kind of lower socioeconomic backgrounds tend to be more restricted in their higher education choices, and more sensitive to things like travel times and the possibility of attending kind of institutions locally. So there's a lot of potential for these regional institutions to have a positive impact on social inequality. But I have to say that in terms of the research that we've done, again, it doesn't always play out in quite the same way. And I mean, I think this can be looked at from different perspectives. So on the one hand, it can be a matter of kind of the match between the programs that are being provided and interest at the local level. So I mean, these kinds of field-specific interests are also very much kind of linked to socioeconomic status, and people might make different kinds of choices, kind of balancing the field that they want to study versus kind of studying at all, or where the region is. And at the same time, I mean, from a positive side, I mean, in the Nordic countries, especially, I don't think students are quite as restricted to the local options as they might be in other countries. So the possibilities of studying away from home are much better in Nordic countries than they are in some other countries. And so this also kind of levels the playing field for students and doesn't make them quite as restricted in their choices. So I think, but definitely kind of looking at this, I think that a big question is what Eva also brought up, kind of who are we doing it for? So is it kind of the local students? Is there a drive for increasing equality, whether it be from a gender perspective or from a kind of socioeconomic perspective? So I'm not sure whether that is being addressed currently, and there's a lot of focus on the potential economic impacts, but I think more could be done from this kind of social inequality perspective.
More could be done. I keep hearing that there is a lot of potential, but we still have work to do. We've also been talking about cooperation and the need to collaborate more in very different contexts. We've also heard that there is local demand, sometimes even local pressure. Fredrik mentioned that there is this potential for collaboration with businesses, and maybe not all of the potential is taken out from it. So Jens, how does it look from the Danish perspective? You have also the business perspective here. Is there enough collaboration, or are we looking at unfulfilled potential?
Hi, thanks. Well, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but there's never enough collaboration. And to address, I think it was Peter who had the question about are we looking to the ivory tower, or should we look at service research? And I'm very much on the service research side of things, meaning that if we want to establish successful educational institutions in the rural areas, we need to make a very good match with the local businesses or the local public sector. Doesn't matter, well, because that helps to improve the quality of the actual courses. It helps to improve the chances of students actually finding a job afterwards, and helps to improve the chances of local businesses to grow, improve, be more competitive. So the collaboration that Eva ended her talk with is very much the same way we look at it. Our starting point is always the workforce. Can we improve the workforce locally? And that also means that we always start with the local businesses and address them and ask them, what do you need? What's the lack? What's the gap that we need to address? And if there is a gap, if there is a need, are you actually willing to participate? Are you willing to cooperate? Are you willing to stand in as teachers, or invite students to your business, or do collabs and actions like that? And that seems to have been the case with some of the work that Husk is our local student center here in Holbæk, where I believe Eben is part of the audience also, has been doing very well in Holbæk, and which we have been succeeding with, and it's a model that we tend to pursue from onwards.
And do we then have, because there I also hear that, well, more cooperation, of course, but perhaps still something that we're working more towards too. And of course, the higher education institutions themselves need to be attuned with the local needs. We need the willingness from the business community side or the local community to engage. But do we have some solutions? Or if you could ask for a wish, like we have a lot of policymakers from different levels also in the audience today. Is there something that we need to do at the policy level? Is there some sort of policy action that would be needed to get closer to fulfilling this potential? And if so, at which level? Do you have some thoughts on that? What kind of policy work could support?
It's not really my area of specialty, but Eva talked about there's a legislative part of it in just even being able to start up, say, a new education in Holbæk would need to be allowed that from the regional from the region. And then there's of course also the economic part of it. Are there actually an economic incentive for the students or for the education institutions to give it a try, to give it a go, even though you're not sure you're able to recruit enough students?
Elina or Han, do you have some thoughts on the policy sphere? What do we need? What do we need to do? What kind of policy support is needed to drive closer cooperation and get closer to having a more sustainable, let's say, local impact? Or is it really a matter of building on local specificities and having a local character, working on the attractiveness? Are there some policy actions that would be needed? Han, do you maybe have a thought?
Yeah, so in my opinion, because I'm an economic geographer, so I guess at the regional level and the local level could be very important. We know that the action are needed at all levels, regional, national, Nordic, but I believe that the regional level could be the area needs the most tailored and the most specific. So this is because each region has very different industrial strengths and labor market needs, and also we have very different institutional capacity, and one size fits all approach can hardly work. So for example, like right now we have a lot of things like the place blind local policies promote the partnership around very fashionable topics such as the AI or EV electronic vehicles. But if the regions like the industry base or the skills pipeline to support this kind of sectors, so such kind of the partnership can always remain very superficial or symbolic. So I think the most important thing will be just to establish more at a regional level.
Yeah, that's true. And that's probably, yes, all levels are needed in different ways. Elina, do you have some thoughts on it? Is it really more about finding good examples, good practices and learning from them, adapting them, or can we draw some policy lessons from what we've seen?
Well, I think that, so from my perspective, I think it needs to be looked at from both the side of kind of what kind of skills are needed, and obviously that requires the kind of regional discussions of employers and so on. But at the same time, I think this was something that was brought up in the presentation by Fredrik as well, is that, I mean, there's the pipeline of the students also entering these institutions, and so it needs to kind of come also from kind of the upper secondary level, and that, I mean, depending slightly on the country, that's either a national or a kind of more regional municipal level decisions of how many places there are, what kinds of streams students are taking at that level. So also getting the students into these higher education institutions, I think that's a crucial kind of stepping stone as well, and it slightly depends on the country what level is the most appropriate for making those policies.
Yeah, but that's a good point. So not only different levels of maybe administration or policy frameworks, but also different levels of education, having some sort of coherent approach across the board. Well, we were talking about addressing local skills needs, being in touch with the local needs. How do we ensure that happens? What are the best ways to build this new type of triple helix collaboration that was also mentioned, or to ensure that businesses, policymakers, and higher education are in tune with each other? Do we have maybe Jens, from your perspective, is there some good practice or something that others could get inspired from? or have you
Well,
seen?
it's going to be simple and quite straightforward. It is reaching out to people and sitting them down around a table, basically starting off with the starting point of what do we need and what are we actually able to do. We're not always able to secure all the exciting new study lines that we probably want, but there's some that we may be able to attract because we got, I don't know, this special I don't know, if we have there might be local what do you call it? There might be special local opportunities that enables us to attract this line of education instead of this line of education, even though we want them both or would like to have them both. So getting people together, sitting them down around the table and trying to figure out who's got time, willingness, and resources to collaborate.
Yeah, so having closer contacts, maybe making use of the being in a smaller place, having that possibility for really sitting around the same table and actually having those discussions. There is a related comment in the chat from the audience mentioning that also funding when it is available, it should meet the local needs for degrees that are useful for the region, because otherwise there are different types of programs or degrees that may or may not be very much needed locally, but more like focused on attracting students from elsewhere and so on. If we add this dimension into the mix, Han, again, maybe going back to you, are there some ways to enhance the possibility of actually having an economic impact or having this closer collaboration locally?
Yeah, so because I'm quantitative guy, so I would think more about data side. So I would say the data really matter. So we know like the local government and the university can make the use of the labor market data. So on the employment trends, vacancy rates, wage growth, etc. So this can just support the emerging skills gaps. So we know that in some Nordic regions, so this kind of data is already used to adjust the vocational and the higher educational offering. So just to try to make the best use of our data.
Making use of the data and having fact-based decisions and so on. Absolutely true. Elina, is there something to add maybe here? Using data, having close collaboration, actually discussing, maybe gathering around the same table. Is there something else that we can do in the local context to stay in tune on different sides?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that sitting around the same table is a really important starting point and something that, I mean, obviously is not just for kind of more rural or smaller regions important, but across the board. And I think that good initiatives can be found for like in best practices for those kinds of initiatives can be found in various places. And then I guess also, I would say that also regional collaboration, for which your new tool is probably a very good starting point, because I mean the smaller the place, the less it can do on its own. So also kind of combining forces, because I mean, I think this was something that was brought up by Peter previously as well. I mean, there's opportunities for distance learning, but then also kind of the social aspect of learning is quite important, and then kind of potentially having these on-site student like parts of a degree in different places to also combine the strengths of different institutions to bring things together.
Definitely. I think that's a very good point. And good that you mentioned our previous speakers, because looking at the time, we are getting close to the end of today's discussion. We have about 10 minutes left, and I want to use that to wrap up our discussion a little bit. For the panel, the idea was to look at what does success look like for peripheral education. We've heard about challenges, we've heard about opportunities, we've heard about some of the needs. I have been asking the audience also for some of their inputs, and we've had this poll running. I'm going to put it on the screen just just so that you all see the results. And then I would like to do a quick round of some closing comments. So we've asked about different types of challenges. We've mentioned quite a few over the course of the discussion today, but the challenges that higher education in rural or small town settings exist include, for example, demographic decline and outmigration at the top of the list, student recruitment and access. How do you organize programs if you don't have enough people? We also get a lot of mentions for funding, limited funding and resources. There are challenges related to attracting and retaining staff and aligning with the local labor market needs, as we've heard. From the audience perspective, some of the comments here on which of these factors actually contribute then to the success of peripheral education institutions. At the top of the list, very much in line with what we have discussed, strong community and regional partnerships, working together with the local partners, having tailored and flexible programs, really responding to the local needs. Digital and hybrid learning formats also get some support. As well as having skilled and committed local staff, also doing some targeted recruitment and outreach. And in terms of how to really measure the success, what counts as success, we've listed different types of options, and the participants have also given some additional comments in the chat. But some key issues coming up from the poll include attracting and retaining population, so that would be a clear local impact, and supporting the local labor markets. Of course, local economic impact, strengthening local identity and cohesion, and enhancing the place attractiveness are also very high on the list, but attracting and retaining population and supporting the local labor market needs are at the top of the list based on what we've heard from our audience. So let's do a final concluding round with our panel. How does success actually look like? If we look towards the future, if we think that we work towards this potential, address some of these challenges, what is a successful higher education institution in a peripheral region? What are some of the key characteristics, either from your own experience, or what would you put at the top of your list? And I know you might need a little bit of time to think, but I would just like to go back to Eva, because we started the tour with you. You already highlighted some of these in the very beginning. Do you still stand by your list, or is there something you would like to highlight in particular?
I think thank you very much for a very interesting debate. What I noted down was that it seems like everything is coming down to how can the educations contribute to the good place. That it's very much an important tool for an attractive overall place. And I think a successful higher education institution seems to be very multidimensional, that it should be a place that can collaborate with a lot of people, but also enhance a lot of different people's skills, building a little bit on Elina's point, that it should be a place with a lot of diversity. So I think a successful parameter would be that it's a very diverse place. I think that is what I take away for now.
Excellent. Then if we go back to our Nordic tour, Peter, what would your list look like? What does success look like from the Westfjords perspective?
I liked what Eva said just before, the good place. And I would have answered that the regional population wants this institution. That's for me the success. Because what we heard very much before is an institution in the countryside should educate people from the countryside for the work life in the countryside. And with a catchment area of 5,000 people and financing system that is for people in place, face-to-face in teaching, it doesn't work. And I say, then you can close the shop if it is that way. So we widened our catchment area out to the world. And of course, then is the question, does it help the region? But while the region wants it still, then it is obviously a success.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jumping straight over to Jakobstad, Fredrik, what does success look like to you? If you look at it from the regional development perspective, what is the ideal outcome? How would it go?
In a way, we already have the success. We have a growing private sector needing more population in the region, and that's already happening. But you have to be a realist also. I mean, we can't in a small region get the head campuses or higher education providers with every program in our region. We can't wait for EU funding that are going more to the eastern and northern parts of Finland, though our region and the western Finland have a higher potential in growth. So you have to be a realist too. But we are already doing the success with the companies, and we have to put every effort into getting the higher education here in different kind of ways into the companies, helping them keep up with their need of being best on the market on the global level. Thank you.
So optimistic, aiming high, but being realistic at the same time. I like that. Sticking with the let's say business or development perspective, Jens, how would you like to see higher educations in peripheral areas? What are the success criteria for you?
Well, hopefully, it's when there's a flow of people and knowledge between the local community and the educational institution. When one adds to the other in both directions, so to speak. And another thing that I think we should remember is the need for creating, and that's adding to the discussion on different local policies. Taking care to create an interesting, vibrant student community to ensure that the educational institution is sustainable over time. I think is another important factor to consider, and that's where organizations like my own, or the municipality, or local cultural institutions can add a lot to the entire triple helix kind of thinking.
Definitely. So at the end of the day, it's not only about the place, not only about the programs, but very much also about the people, having that in the mix. Right, then I would turn to Elina next. From your perspective, what does success look like?
Well, I would say that success is attracting and retaining students. And I don't mean that this is just from the local area, but so that there's a suitable mix from both the local area and from beyond. And then retaining is also about kind of having the labor market links so that people can then kind of find employment, whether that's in the local area or beyond. So I think kind of attraction and retention of students would be key to me.
Yes, very important. Both sides, not just getting people in, but also making them want to stay. Final word then from the panel, Han, to you. Can we get to the economic impact, or do we have some other success criteria to look at?
Yeah, so I guess so from the economic perspective, so I would say if we can see the really successful growth in terms of the local income level, employment rates of the graduates, business creation, or the reduction in the outmigration. So that would be a really good sign. So for example, if more students find job locally after graduation, or if the region sees improved the labor market outcomes over time, so that would be a really tangible sign of the impact. And also, we know that the impact is not just about the average, so it is also about the distribution. So a meaningful impact, meaning that the peripheral education reduced inequality within the region. So if we have the successful results, so it means that we can help the underrepresented and disadvantaged groups across to achieve the opportunities.
Excellent. So we can actually even measure the impact at the end of the day. With that, I want to thank our panelists and speakers very much for their contributions today. I also want to thank our participants. You have been very active, and if you still have a few minutes, I would encourage you to take one quick look at the chat as we are closing. There are some good comments also from the participants about looking at collaboration between universities, having teachers on both sides, making use of AI, thinking about the impact of technology, not ignoring the role of career guidance, goes very well with working across the different education levels and helping people not only to come, but also to stay at the end of the day. So plenty of good solutions and opportunities. I hope you've also drawn some inspiration from our cases. This brings us to the end of today's webinar. I want to thank you very much for your participation. And I just want to remind you at this point that this webinar has been recorded. You will get access to the full recording as well as the material and the map that we introduced, the mapping tool that is available. You can go and take a look at that, continue to browse it and get back to us with any feedback or additional comments. So make use of the mapping tool on higher education institutions and take a look at the EDINORA project report that introduces not only the cases that we've heard about today, but also additional cases, additional inspiration, as well as some success criteria and food for thought. With this, thank you very much for joining today and have a very nice rest of the day. Thank you and goodbye.